Hey, did everyone just get bumped off? I'm sorry. I just got thrown out of the room. Sorry about
Yeah,
that,
I think
Christine.
so. No, that's okay. That's okay. But I was just saying, so we're kind of overly cautious about his heart, and I think some of the erectile dysfunction that he experiences, with my libido being very high, is honestly me expecting too much from a 51-year-old
Mm,
year old man who has had a heart attack because he
interesting.
has. Yeah, he's not able, for example, to take any of the helpers like Viagra and etc.
Okay.
because of his heart,
Okay.
or and also he has a testosterone deficiency that he cannot take extra testosterone for because of his heart. So we're
Wow.
we're really in a bind because like I said, my libido is through the roof and I'm feeling very hurt when I get rejected. And I would just
Mm.
like to know another way to approach that, you know?
Oh, thank you for sharing that. That's so honest and earnest and uh a big deal. Really important stuff. I hope she jumps on soon. Hey, Perry. Dr. Hardwick Smith is not here yet. Oh, she's going to be 5 minutes late. Okay. So we'll give her one more minute. Um, let's see. I just want to also remind everyone, you're all muted right now. So thank you, but just remind you to mute. And if you have any questions, Christine, I'm just going to ask you to please weigh in your question as much as you want in the chat. I have a lot of questions, as I mentioned, that came in when I posted about this call, and I'm going to, of course, get to all of yours as well. But I definitely, I don't want to miss it. So please just put up a hand or something and share as much as you'd want in the chat. Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking in the chat right now. What a nice group. Hope everyone's doing well. Someone got in the elevator with me today and she said, "Oh, I can't believe summer's almost over." And I thought, I know, but I was also kind of like, I don't want to talk about it yet. I'm not even ready for that kind of conversation, you know? Thanks, Christine. You know, I was thinking, which I wasn't going to get into here, for no other reason than that there were just I initially started to, but there were just so many questions that came in that were more important than addressing mine. But I was curious about people for whom, in their relationship, a partner is sick or has a disability or has an accident or, in some ways what Christine is dealing with, where, there's an event that enters into the relationship that disrupts the sexual relationship, and just how particularly difficult that can be. And I know Dr. Hardwick Smith has shared quite a bit, certainly in her book, about sort of reframing how we think about sex. And I think she speaks to us being like the collective, woman, whatever that is, but she speaks to most people, I guess, thinking of sex and intimacy in some ways as intercourse. And do you like how I did that? Intercourse. But she tries, and she does in her book, sort of lays out how to reconsider what a sexual relationship can look like and what it is. And I think that's interesting. For me, I'll just share my own business. Since my husband was diagnosed with cancer, it has really changed. And I was thinking about this differently and kind of teeing up for this interview, but obviously his ability to even feel well enough it has entered into our relationship. It has disrupted things. But so yes. And so it's been kind of like sort of thinking through just what intimacy is like, what it can look like, what it can feel like, when he's maybe not feeling so well. Anyway, a big share, but I think a lot of people are going through stuff like that. Okay, let's see. Where is Dr. Smith? I feel like I could keep riffing. I could just talk about our questions right here. But I hope she joins us soon. Oh, she's joining now. This is suspenseful. Is that her? Is she the Susan there? I see your name. Oh, I see her now. Hello, Dr. Hardwick Smith.
Susan, please. How are you?
Susan, I'm well. Very nice to see you. Thank you for joining.
Of course.
Welcome. I'm going to introduce you and get right to it. I hope you're not too harried and coming from something that's made you feel stressed out. Don't be. We're very chill here.
Oh, I'm not. Yeah. Well, my life is, I'm a doctor. So this
So
is the least stressful thing I have to do all day.
Okay, good. All right, good. Dr. Susan Hardwick Smith is a board certified GYN and has been in practice in Houston since 1999. She recently retired as the founder and president of Complete Women's Care Center, which she opened as a solo practitioner in 2002 and grew to be the largest all-female OBGYN group in the country by 2019. In 2020, Dr. Susan decided to start her second act as the founder of Complete Midlife Wellness Center, a concierge practice focused on helping women find their full aliveness in midlife and celebrate the amazing opportunities that menopause brings. Absolutely. Her office practice focuses on midlife women's wellness, including hormone assessment and management, weight management, sexual, spiritual, and relational wellness, as well as women's life coaching. Welcome to the Perry community, Dr. Susan. I just want to let you know that, as you can see, there are people on the call. We just encourage everyone who may have a comment to put them into the chat, and I will facilitate those questions for you. I also want to let you know that I began, days ago, kind of researching you and reading your book and coming up with lots of questions to ask you. But when I shared about our call, I got a lot of DMs. And so many of my questions got thrown out because the questions that were coming from people who wanted to speak and connect with you were so compelling. And I thought really needed to be heard and given attention. So just to kind of lay the groundwork before we get into all of that, your story really kind of tees up, obviously, the work that you do today. It's fascinating. It's inspiring, really, I think, for so many of us in midlife. And I was sort of sharing here before you jumped on that you had this practice and you were seeing all of these women come into your office. And I believe it is, correct me if I'm wrong, 97% of them, I'm sorry, was it 93%? 93% were sharing that their libido had decreased, their desire had decreased, their pleasure had decreased, but there was this remaining 7% who were having a glorious sexual experience in midlife.
That's right. Yeah.
And you were sort of interested in what that secret sauce was, and you began a study, and I'll let you fill in all the blanks. And out of that study came your book, Sexually Woke.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, I'll let you take it from here. Fill in whatever gaps you'd like, share as much of your personal story as you'd like.
So that could be a really long story. I'll tell you the short version, and then you can pick up on any parts that might have been left out, because I'm sure there's a lot of questions that people might want to have answered.
Certainly.
So I was practicing general OB-GYN for about 20 years, and it was great. And I delivered babies and did hysterectomies and all the things that we do. And I knew just about zero about menopause, which is typical for your average board certified OB-GYN. And you and your listeners might find that surprising, but we are taught exactly nothing about what happens after the childbirth experience is over. Maybe we learn a little bit about geriatric medicine, but there's a gigantic gap in the middle. And so even as a gynecologist myself, and like I said, I've been practicing for years, had the biggest group in the country at that time that was all women. So just to say, we were doing a lot of OB-GYN and nothing to do with menopause. I was the oldest member of the group, having founded it. So I was the first one of this all-female group to go through menopause. So around about 45, I hit a major wall, as you know, you heard from your listeners, and many of them have experienced all the things. I had every single thing.
Yeah.
Hot flashes, night sweats. My sex drive was zero. I was gaining weight. I was grumpy. I had headaches. I felt depressed. I had sugar cravings and couldn't sleep, and all the things. And I did not have a solution to help myself. And meanwhile, I'm one of the quote top gynecologists in the country, right? But I didn't know what to do. So that set about this journey to figure out what to do. And not only about the sexual wellness part, which I was really interested in for the reasons that you mentioned, but also just about the perimenopausal, menopausal journey in general, and how we can approach it in a more intelligent manner and come up with the best treatments and the safest treatments to prevent us all from feeling so terrible. And then, of course, to prevent long-term health issues that happen as a result of hormone depletion. But speaking to the sexual part, that was really alive for me, because I had loved sex in my 20s. I mean, loved it. And then 30s, it was like baby making sucks. And then you had babies, and then you were tired. And there was always a reason, right? But I just had no sex drive, and my kids were old enough that should have been returning. And I just didn't have it. And so I was fascinated by this 7%. I sought them out. I interviewed them. I wanted to know what they had, honestly, so that I could do it myself.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
I was hoping that it would result in some teachable things that we could actually teach, and that this was something that we could all benefit from learning what is going on in the bedroom. Because what a great, amazing opportunity I have to actually, so to speak, go into other people's bedrooms and find out what's going on. And, most of us don't get to do that, but lucky me, I got to find out all this amazing stuff. And that led to the book, and then led to my practice completely changing. So now that's all I do, because it's
Yeah.
just so fun and cool and amazing.
Yeah.
And so that's the short version. And yeah,
I love it. That's, I also, you're sort of unique in that you can bring sort of the, the medicine to it, but also really what I find compelling about your book is there is this thread of the spiritual, the relational, what's really happening up here for so many of us that impact our sexual health, our sexual freedom, our sexual enjoyment, all of these things you've been able to kind of merge together in this book. So thank you for that.
Yeah, so then what you are saying is so important, because sex, I think, I can't think of a better example of something that requires holistic health. Like, it's not just having healthy vaginal tissue, even though that is critical, right? It's
Yeah.
also having a really healthy mind state, and a great spiritual practice of whatever kind, and a great self-development practice, and great communication skills, and all of these things which are not taught in med school, to say the least. And so you could have 5 different people helping you: a psychologist, a life coach, a OB-GYN, a hormone expert, a functional medicine doctor. Or perhaps we could evolve so that one person could understand all of that. And I'm on an ongoing learning journey, but that's really what we've attempted to do. And the way we practice in my group, to really look at the whole picture, not just, here's the pill and see you next year, which is so inadequate.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Dr. Susan, sorry, I keep wanting to say Dr. Hardwick Smith, but I honor the Susan.
Dr. Susan, that's much
Dr.
easier.
Susan, okay.
I'm just a real person too. I don't like wear a white coat. Like, we're just the same. So yeah.
Thank you. Could you let us know why sexual health, I'm not sure exactly where I read or saw you speak of this, but you talked about sexual health being indicative of your overall health. And it made me think of something I didn't realize, which is that erectile dysfunction can be indicative of heart disease, which is something you mentioned. Can you talk to that a bit, just to kind of, again, couch this conversation in that piece of the science?
Yeah. So just picking up on what you said about men, and I'll just say, without forgive me if I appear sexist, but they're just a bit more simple as far as their sexuality in general. Of course, there are exceptions. So erectile dysfunction is often a marker that there's blood flow issues going on somewhere, and can be a marker for heart disease. As you said, it's worse with high blood pressure, obesity, diabetes. So absolutely, it can be a sign that there's something else going on. Now, women are, I'm just going to say, way more complicated than that. But when my sexual being is not at her best, it's often because I'm tired, it's because I'm stressed, it's because I'm not comfortable with my body, or I'm holding a lot of resentment, or a lot of other things that are often more in the psychological health department. And we cannot differentiate that from our general wellness. So I think I will just go out on a limb and say that men are different than women. They are. For men, sexual issues are often related to physical health issues. And what I find in women is they're more often related to emotional or psychological health. I don't like the word problems, but just lack of optimization. We're not feeling our best for whatever reason. And all of those things can be optimized. And so the cutting to the happy ending to this story, there is no reason at all why anybody listening, no matter what your situation, cannot have this. This is not something just for skinny, pretty white girls or anything like that. It's for everybody. It's just, I think that we've been taught for so long that it's so out of reach. And I certainly felt like this myself, that having that really alive sexual relationship and a really engaged, intimate relationship with whomever my partner might be is something for other people. I can't have that because I'm too old, or I'm too this, or I'm too that, or not enough of this or that, right? That not enoughness illness that we all share. Right. Yes, you can have it. And I learned about it. I learned about it myself, and then I can teach it to other people, and it's available. Yes. Most
Great.
important.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm going to get us into the community questions. There is someone here on the call who was sharing with us before you jumped on, excuse me. And forgive me, I won't remember everything that she said, but her challenge is that her libido is much higher than her husband's, who is a few years older, who had, excuse me, suffered a heart attack, I think about 10 years ago. And I just want to look and see, something really important she brings up is how to deal with feeling rejected and unwanted.
Yeah, so it just gets right to how personal this is. And in some way, whatever the mismatch is, this is a more unusual mismatch, right? Where a woman wants sex more than the man, but certainly can happen in situations like this, or prostate cancer is another really common one, or just erectile dysfunction, where actually a statistic that's really easy to remember is at 40% of men have some degree of ED, at 50%, at 60%. So that's easy to remember. Anyway, a lot of guys. So what's the first thing that we think if our partner loses his erection? Something's wrong with me. He doesn't love me. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not this, my vagina's too loose, etc. We immediately go to personalizing it. Something is wrong with me. It's such an easy gap to jump over. Meanwhile, the male partner is thinking exactly the same thing. Something's wrong with me. I'm not virile enough. I'm not manly enough. She's going to have an affair with someone else. So it's a perfect setup for us to take things personally. So what I would say about that, which is very difficult and an ongoing journey for all of us, but a great time to just do that practice. This is not personal. It's not personal. It's not about me. There's nothing wrong with me. If we can, it's very hard, move out of that space and move into a space of compassion for the one who is suffering, which is him. So hard to do. And bless you for even trying, because it's very difficult waters when there's a mismatch of either type, right? I mean, things work best when both of us want sex the same amount.
Sure.
Now,
Thank you. Go ahead.
And then also, if for whatever reason sex is not available to us, maybe we're single, maybe our partner's not able to or not interested in, or any combination, having a healthy sex life doesn't require another person. That's a really important lesson that I learned. Many of the sexually woke in my book were not in a partnership. They were single by choice or just by time, that moment, and still had a really healthy relationship with sex. So as in anything in life, relying on another person for our happiness is a bad idea. Because people are unreliable.
Yes.
So we have to source our happiness from inside, even if it's sexual wellness. And if we have a partner, great. And if we don't, also great. But don't take it personally. That's my number one message. It's so hard. I work on that.
No. It is hard. And I thank you for that. And we're gonna get deeper into sort of what we can do and how we can maybe, one of the things is sort of reframe or really understand how we perceive sex and what we believe it to be, what we think it's been, and how that can actually change. And I think what you just said is suggestive of that. I want to go on to the next question that came in. This person says, my husband is Christian. I am as well, but not really the same as him. And I think he finds, this is a similar question, actually. I think he finds my desire a turnoff. I have no idea how to communicate with him about this. And, this question made me think about this sort of, as I mentioned, this spiritual self-awareness thread in your book. But could you speak just a little more to that piece of this?
Fantastic example of how complicated the whole sexual desire arousal process is, about what we've been taught about what's right or wrong, or judgments about what's good and bad. And it goes back to childhood, often teachers, parents, religions, fetus ideas, I'll just say. And at some point in life, and again, I'm just saying what works for me, and to each her own. I understand there are many different spiritual traditions, but just in general, I would say at some point in our life, I had to, or I chose to evaluate what I thought was right for me. And I ended up throwing out a lot of things that I'd learned when I was a child and realizing that many things I'd been taught were not helpful and even straight up harmful.
Mm.
So that may be the case in situations like this. If somebody has judgments about what sex is or isn't, or should or shouldn't be, or what's right or wrong, I would just say those are not true. They're just opinions. And in as much as they're not true in their opinions, they can be changed. They can be altered. We can be curious. And we know that people who talk about sex more have better sex and more often. So opening the conversation, and certainly, it's just wrought with minefields, right? That we could step in. So be calm, be prepared, do it at a time when you have permission from both sides to have a friendly conversation. And just talk through it. My opinion, you can disagree, is that whomever our creator was and whatever we believe, for sure, we were given this ability to have pleasure and connection. And I do believe it was meant to be used. Others might think differently, but
Right.
seems to make sense to me.
Yeah, it certainly does. Thank you. Thank you for
Right.
that. Okay, here's the next question. Honestly, I don't even feel like it ever. I'm just like, I don't care anymore. I think it's him. He's not the nicest person in the world. And I fantasize about sex with men. So I guess it's not my disinterest, it's my relationship. That was her question. And then she wrote, I don't even know. So piggybacking off of this, I wanted to spend a little time hovering over the science, if you will.
Mhm.
That part, you tell me the science, the desire, sort of, do they merge? And I'm thinking about things like hormones, anatomic changes to the vagina, vaginal pain, pain with intercourse, vaginal dryness. I know this isn't exactly what she's speaking to, but it just made me sort of think of the science part when I got her question.
Yeah. Oh, that is a great question. And that's also a great question that you had. Yeah. So many things. And you just listed a whole bunch of them. So the most common, I'm just going to call it, we call it a sexual dysfunction. I hate words like that. The most common change that happens regarding our sexuality in our 40s is a lack of desire. And as the wonderful question suggested, there's nothing wrong with arousal in most cases. Like desire and arousal are different. So for example, I felt like this too. I did not want to have sex at all. In that period of my life, I had no sex drive whatsoever. However, I still could have an orgasm on my own. I had fantasies about other men. It was a lot to do with disconnect in the relationship. I don't want to have sex with someone I'm not connected with, or someone that I'm harboring a lot of resentment towards, or that I just don't feel like they see me or listen to me or really care about me. I don't want to have sex with that person because we don't. And so in that situation, can we mend that relationship through therapy and other things? I hope so. And not all relationships are made to last forever. So the most common thing that happens is such a great question. And I know we could talk for hours just about this one. The most common thing that happens in that setting, and this happened to me, and I talk about it in my book, I wasn't looking to leave the marriage at all. I was just sort of numbly going along with it. But I met someone who in one sentence made me realize that somebody could talk to me and listen to me in a way that made me feel connected. And that very day I went home and said, I'm leaving. Like, I want that. Wow. Now, I didn't have an affair. I didn't leave for this particular person, but I realized that I could feel that connected with another person. And guess what? My sex drive came back. So
isn't that something?
Yeah, it frequently happens. So divorce is highest between 45 and 55, because often we're reevaluating our life. Our kids have gotten older. We may have grown apart. I'm not recommending divorce for everyone, but it was the right choice for me. And so often it's the connection piece that's missing. And all of a sudden desire has returned. So lack of connection will shut down our desire. Now, you also mentioned some other really important things. Maybe we're in a super connected relationship and that's not it. Hormonal depletion can shut down desire. Now, if you're 45 like me and you have zero testosterone and a disconnected marriage, I would rather do the dishes than have sex. Forget it. And then if it's going to hurt because now I've got vaginal dryness, I mean, double no, triple not happening, right?
Right.
So yes, we need all those things. So you can have the fanciest vagina on earth with all the hormones. If you're disconnected from your partner, it's not, that's, you're not going to, maybe you want to have sex, but it won't be the level of intimacy that you could experience if you had that glue. It's so important. On the other hand, you could have a super connected relationship and be hormonally depleted and not be able to enjoy sex because of anatomic reasons. So it's all of the above. Like, we are so complex.
Yeah, we really are. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So we have to address all of those things. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm going to get to the next question, and then I see a comment which came in, but I need to get my reading glasses on. But you're making me think of a few things. This next question, she wrote to me, I'm feeling trapped in my marriage lately. I really can't explain it, but I do. Everything is great on paper, but I just feel like I'm busting at the seams. This actually reminds me a bit of your story. I'm on
Yeah.
HRT. I'm otherwise healthy. Kids are out of the house. I hate it. Sex is just not on my list of things that I want to do. And then you just, you have been kind of weaving in these pieces about being seen, being heard, feeling valued, feeling appreciated. And I'm wondering if I can't speak to this person's question or comment really, but I think, again, homing in on these particular things, these things other than intercourse, if you will,
Absolutely. Yeah.
help to kind of increase the enjoyment, the desire. I don't know.
Yeah. So this idea or feeling, which I shared, of being trapped. I mean, that just that word is, it just, I
Yeah.
get it. I feel that feeling.
Yeah.
When we feel trapped, and I wrote about this, when I feel trapped, that is the opposite of freedom, right? Just by definition. I'm in a prison. I feel like I'm in a box, whatever the metaphor might be. And the sexually woke use so many of these similar metaphors, was quite amazing. The shift between the feeling of being trapped, or I love this, like wanting to bust out. What a beautiful description. Yes. It's like, I am more than this. Like, I want out so I can expand. And that part of ourselves that knows, that higher self, our best self, our, Holy Spirit, whatever we call it, right, knows we need more. And I know that feeling. I literally wanted to bust out. I did bust out and be free and expand, and all the lovely metaphors related to becoming the best version of ourselves. Because when we're in a relationship that is preventing us from doing that, I'll just go ahead and assume that's the feeling. That's a codependent relationship. It's not healthy. One of the definitions of codependence is being in a relationship where the various members try to keep each other small, right? That's not ideal. So can we fix that or amend that relationship? I hope so. Or we just say, this is not working for me. And we've got the key to our own prison cell here, ladies.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I love that idea. This is really important stuff, and well beyond what, I shouldn't say beyond. The thread is very clear.
Yeah.
To what's happening outside. I keep saying in the bedroom, but wherever you're having sex, to that, right? It's
oh, totally. Yeah. So the connection comes first, the feeling of freedom and expansiveness, and I get to be who I really am. And my, that beautiful, like, if you're listening and you can't see the video, I'm doing these like big expansive movements with my hands. It's like, wow, I'm free. I can dance around and sing, and I can be myself. And if you're in a relationship where you're not allowed to do that, or that is somehow judged or made wrong, or you deserve better. And we hope we can mend relationships. We really do. And I would, as I did in mine, it wasn't a choice. It was, I'm going here and I'd like you to come, but if you don't want to come, I'm going there anyway. It was
I think too, you're making me think also, just sort of the parallel to this is sort of growing up, receiving messages about being small, being I don't know, pick a trope, being well behaved, being a good girl, all of these things that have informed our understanding of what sex, desire, pleasure, intimacy, and so on and so on should be. As opposed to kind of what's truly authentic to us.
So beautifully said. Yes. And at some point in life, if we're lucky enough, if we're privileged to have opportunities to be given these tools that help out our personal growth, like this platform that you have, we at some point get to choose if we want to stay stuck or not.
Mm,
And
that's
it
good
is a
stuff.
choice. I get sometimes it might be almost like we have a gun to our head. I understand there are situations where it's very difficult, but yes, that's true. But for most of us, it's an emotional prison that we went along with it. They
Yeah.
might have tried to put us in there, but we do hold the key. And so when, let's just say we can mend the relationship. I don't want to sound negative. Like we can mend things, learn to communicate better, little tiny things that I talked about in my book, like just having a ritual around hello and goodbye. Like, hey,
Yeah.
my gorgeous guy, I hope you had a good day. That's a lot more sexually inspiring than did you pay the bills and what's for dinner?
Yeah.
Just those moments of connection. It doesn't cost any money. It doesn't take any time. It just takes intention. Like we just
Yes.
decide to do it, and
Yes.
tiny things. And believe me, because it happened to me and many of my patients, when we're able to bring that connection back on just by looking at each other in the eye and really, how are you today? How are you feeling? What's going on in your world? I want to have sex with that person.
Mm,
It's delicious to have sex with that person, but somebody who ignores me, doesn't talk to me, keeps me small, doesn't inspire my growth. No, I don't want to have
yeah.
sex with that person.
Yeah.
There's way
No,
more than
no.
just the bedroom. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Here's the next one. This one's really interesting. I know you're going to like it. I really hate to talk during sex, and my partner loves it. I want to be giving during the act, but I feel like I'm pretending, and this makes me uncomfortable. And it makes me think about what you talk about so often, which is faking sexual pleasure.
Yeah.
Can you
Okay.
speak to that?
Yeah. So just to that question, and I've done it, and many of us have. Sometimes we just wanted it. Where I was and not too long ago past, I just wanted it over with. I would do anything to make it over, as even pretending to have an orgasm, or even pretending I was enjoying something that I wasn't. Oh, does that take you down a slope you don't want?
Yeah.
First of all, it's going to reinforce the behavior and they'll do it again because
Right.
you said you liked it.
Right.
And secondly,
Right.
it's just dishonest. Okay. And so I had to be very honest with myself. Like, dishonesty in relationships is just not good. Like, we're trying to build transparent, connected relationships. So lying, not a good idea. And I've done it. So no judgment. But, regarding different sexual practices, we really need to set some boundaries about things we're comfortable with and things we're not. Now, I also love the idea of pushing the edges of those boundaries, right? So there was a lot of things I used to be uncomfortable with just because I'd never done them before and they were new and they felt a bit weird. But pushing those boundaries, not to the place where, okay, this is really something that jars up against, I don't like it. Okay, not no.
Right.
But maybe there again with a conversation, I always think like, we've got to start by talking about it. I'd sit down and talk about it. Hey, I just don't feel comfortable talking during sex. I know, I get it. I know it would be really fun if I did, but can we take it easy with that a little bit for a while? Because I'd love to do what makes you feel good. I'm just feeling a little uncomfortable with that. So maybe we could try something else for a bit. I mean, could it be just that simple that we just talk
Right.
about it like it's what's for dinner? It doesn't have to
Right.
be a terrible conversation.
Yeah.
There's some things I just don't like doing, and I probably never will. But there's
Yeah.
other things that I want to try and practice. Like maybe that would be fun.
Right.
So kind of both and like I encourage everyone to try new things because the menu is vast, and who's going to know if you don't taste the things you've never tried before, and don't do something that just makes you so uncomfortable because we all have our personal boundaries. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. And you're making me think too, in your book, as I mentioned, as you've mentioned, there's this theme really of authenticity and being your true self and really finding intimacy through authenticity, both on your own and with another. And I imagine for many people out there, some people might be sort of more a better term isn't coming to mind, but like risk taker kind of personality, and, willing to try any and all things, interested in trying any and all things, whatever that might look like, whatever's comfortable between people. And then there are others who are just like, I am not there yet. I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to, I don't know, but I'm just not there yet. But I think too, there's this piece of the conversation. I don't mean to veer off and, far into this, but there is this piece of the conversation sort of about, certainly in this culture, about like pleasing a male partner in particular, and sort of doing things that feel maybe inauthentic, maybe uncomfortable, maybe just like silly, I don't know, whatever it could be.
Yeah.
And I don't know, bridging that gap can feel, I think, pretty wide for some people.
It's a complex dance for sure.
Yeah.
So not to at all say that it's simple, because it's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
But I mean, what the thing that is lacking in my case was, and most people that I know, or I'll just say everybody that I know, is communicating about it. Because of course, it sounds like a cliche that the key is communication, but I mean, here it really is. Like, can we just sit down with our intimate partner and have a straight up conversation about this? And then why is it so hard to talk to someone who might have been in our home and even in our bed for 20 years about something
So good.
so important? I think we have to think about, why is this so hard? What part of me is having trouble talking about this, and why? Am I ashamed? Am I listening to voices from my past, or from my priest, or from my mother, or somebody else? Is this me talking, or is this somebody else holding me back from it? Just, it's a lot of self-analysis. Just sit down by yourself and just feel what's happening. If I've got someone in my bed, I would just say, that should be someone I can talk to about just about anything. But I wasn't. I mean, I was married for 18 years and we never talked about anything. So I'll just say I was not doing this. But
this is what you've learned since.
Right. And I can tell you, since I have, and I'm on a learning journey, I'm quite certain it'll keep getting better, which is exciting. But having brought those practices into my life, I mean, I can't even tell you the difference, like night and day, just from communication. And now I'm in a fantastic partnership where we can talk about anything and nothing's embarrassing. It's just like, what's for dinner? Hey, what do you think of this? Or do you like it when I touch you here? Or what would you like me to do? Or I love it when you do this. Can we do some more of that? Or I'd like to play around with this, but I'm a little scared, is it weird to do bondage, or do you want to give it I mean, why not talk about it?
No, I'm actually so glad you brought that up, because bondage was on my mind, and without going down that rabbit hole too far, I think that's an example of something that may or may not feel, I don't know what, okay, safe, fun, happy, whatever it is for
that's a really tricky one. I'm bringing it up because it's so common that we're secretly interested. You might not be, but I am. And many women are, and ashamed to even think about it, because it's like, okay, if I have fantasies about being overpowered, which I do, and many of you do too, does that make me a bad person? Does that mean that I'm not a feminist, that I believe rape is okay, that I believe actually being overpowered is okay? Absolutely not. I mean, we need to draw the line and understand there's a difference between fantasy and play, and what we would think is good and healthy in the real world, because this is just fantasy and play. And I can tell you, most women who have very powerful jobs or are very tightly in control in the majority of their life, like me, I'm a mommy, a doctor, and all these things, right? We have fantasies about being out of control. What's wrong with that? It's a fantasy, it's a release, and it's fun and playful. And no, do I really want to be raped? And I believe that's okay? Of course not. But it's okay to play with it and talk about it in this way. It's fun. If it's fun, it may not be for you. And talk through how that could be something that, for example, might be fun. But yeah, same as if my partner says, I love these questions. Hey, what do you fantasize about when you're masturbating? That's a fun question. I fantasize about being overpowered. Okay. He has fantasies about having 3 women in the bedroom at the same time. Now, that's great. Now they're probably 25 and a lot of other things that I'm not. And that is perfectly healthy. He's not going to actually do it, but because he doesn't want to, but fantasizing about it is healthy. And that doesn't mean I'm going to get mad at him or be like, oh, you don't love me anymore, or you really want to have 3 women. Of course not. Let's just separate fantasy from reality and have fun with it. Right? Because now I know that's his fantasy. For example, I'm just making something up. We can pretend and bring some of those imaginary things into the bedroom, for example. Why not? It's fun if it's fun. And if
This
it's not,
is fascinating to me. And also I'm kind of like a little stumped, to be honest. I feel like a conversation about fantasy is really important and interesting, and also possibly really triggering for people. I would imagine there's some people who will feel like, will sort of like, I don't look like that. I don't sound like that. That's not at all our reality. So how
right?
do I be
That's why it's a
okay?
fantasy.
Right. I know. I guess that's what I'm saying. It's
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to think, okay, yeah, yes, it's a fantasy. And, there's so much, like fantasy derailing talk kind of in the world. I think I don't know, I don't think there's a lot of conversation about fantasy. Maybe not. Maybe that's what it is.
Not enough. So let's be honest. I'll be honest. I absolutely adore my partner. We have the best sex life. He's so gorgeous and fantastic and smart and every single thing. And I have no desire to ever be intimate with anybody else. Okay. And I don't think about him when I'm masturbating.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
He
Right.
doesn't think about me either.
Right. Right. Yes. Thank you for being so open and honest and sharing about it. I think it really helps kind of like turn the volume down on
Right.
what people might make up in their head. I just want to read what our community member here on the call has weighed in. She wrote a while back, I feel emotionally disconnected now that we aren't having sex. Just a few minutes ago, she wrote in, we listened to Dirty Talk audiobooks and it helped. And then we have always had BDSM type sex, and now he's in his emotions and not up for being domineering anymore. This makes me upset.
Yeah, back to don't take it personally. I think if that was just the headline for everything, that would be great, right? That's one of the 4 agreements and
Yes.
People change. I mean, I've changed. The things that I liked when I was 20, as we get older, we like different things. We might need more of this and less of that. And that's a beautiful part of changing. It doesn't mean it's worse. It just means it's different. And so men, not unlike us, human beings, change. So what he liked at one time, maybe he likes something different now. Doesn't mean he loves you less, doesn't mean he's having an affair, doesn't mean he's weak and wimpy or any other story we might create. It just means he's changing. And so I would suggest let him do that. And our job, I think, is as a partner, is to inspire ourselves, our children, our partners, our employees, whomever, to be the best version of themselves. And if that's changing his sexual preferences, well, hey, it could be worse things. It's not about you. I'm just saying.
Right. Yes.
We'll find something else. Find some new. Hey, what do you want to do? Let's do something else. Maybe we can try some other cool. I mean, you guys obviously have a really open sex life. Listening to cool audio that gets you excited. Hey, that's neat. And then there's such a huge menu. Maybe that one's gotten boring for him, and he wants to try something else. Well, hey.
Interesting. Thank you.
Something else. Yeah.
I'm gonna motor through the last couple of questions, and then I want to really pivot. I know you're short on time probably by now, to sort of solutions, like what the sexually woke have to teach us, which you talked about a bit, but just before, this one question, I hate my body right now, and that makes me want to literally hide from my partner. Can we talk for a moment about body image here?
Yeah, so other than hormones, the 2 psychological elements that were most commonly associated with a lack of sexual desire in my study, and this is many studies show the same thing, are resentment and don't like my body, which for women usually is some kind of gaining weight and or ages related to changing or childbirth, all of the things. Right. So when we don't like our own body, of course, we don't want to be seen naked. We don't want anyone to touch us. That is it's heartbreaking. So I'm a huge advocate of having a healthy body, whatever that looks like for you. So yeah, we work on our health. We become healthy, and there's all different shapes and sizes of healthy. And doing that self-work so that we can be comfortable in our body. Because I don't know any man that, and certainly any that would be worth your time of day, who care. They're just so happy to be in bed with you. This body hatred is not coming from him. And if it is, we need to get rid of him, because that's not a guy you want to be around. But it's not coming from him. And 99% of the couples I work with, he's like, she's beautiful. I don't know what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Coming from inside. So that's a lot of self-work and reflection to free ourselves from that self-hatred. Because if we hate ourselves, how can anyone else get in to give us love?
I'm struck that we've been talking now for, at least 30 minutes. And so much of this goes back to what's happening up here and really in here.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. It's just so, particularly for women, I guess this in a heterosexual relationship, maybe. I want to get to this last comment because it's really interesting, actually, about with regards to what I just said. I'm in a relationship with my partner, a woman, and my sex drive is in the toilet. Not every lesbian relationship is sexually perfect. And I just want to say that because I feel it's a trope, as though just because you're a woman, you know your anatomy and how to pleasure someone with the same anatomy. This isn't true. I guess this is not really a question, more a comment, but I felt it needs to be said. I'm so appreciative of this.
Yes, that's such an amazing subject, isn't it? Like, talk about stereotypes. We've got stereotypes for everything. One is that lesbian women have great sex because they know how to get around a vagina. What a bunch of bull. Even gynecologists don't know the anatomy of the clitoris. So don't judge yourself for not knowing. We don't know how to pleasure ourselves. Like, so we're struggling. If we're in a heterosexual relationship, we're struggling with learning our own anatomy, how to pleasure ourselves, so we can even pass it on to a male. But just because you have two women, now you've got two sheep who don't know what the hell we're doing, because we don't. I mean, and it's not because of anything other than we're not taught. So yeah, nobody knows the anatomy of the clitoris unless she's actually gone out there and tried to figure it out. So yeah, totally get it. It's not, this is not anything to do with being even in a relationship at all, but certainly many of the sexually woke were gay, some were single, all shapes and sizes. I mean, it wasn't.
You really spoke to a range, which I was super glad for and appreciative. Okay, now let's pivot to solutions. What are the secrets, Susan, of the sexually woke?
Yes.
What are they doing that the rest of us may not be?
They're not really secrets, but that was very interesting that they were all things that we've been talking about. And so I had this, I'll briefly tell you. So I had this research group, because I'm not a research scientist, analyze the data from these surveys. And then we found the group of people who were answering in a positive manner to all these questions regarding their relationship with sex. Okay, so that was the sexually woke group. And as we know, it was 7%. And then I interviewed them all. And that was so much fun. I mean, for hours. And then with that transcribed information, went through to try to see what they had in common. There's a lot of shared metaphors, a lot of things that they shared, and then separated it into categories. And so I decided to pick 3, although it could have been 10, but they're encompassed in these 3. That's the short background. Okay, so what were they? Number 1, they were all psychological things.
Interesting.
Yes. So number 1, they all shared an attitude of being open to possibility. And what does that mean? I'm doing that thing with my hands again. Where they felt expansive. They had let themselves out of this box, prison, trapped feeling. Not always by leaving a relationship, but often that was the case, or by changing in some way that allowed them to be free of that feeling of being stuck, trapped, at the end, all the things, right? So they would consistently use metaphors like, I came out of my shell, or I have this great optimism about walking into the second half of my life as an open playing field. You can get the idea, those sort of metaphors. And so in this mindset, it's a mindset of being open to possibility. You can immediately see how that translates into intimacy. If I'm open to possibility in general, and I'm living my best life, right? I'm doing this with my hands again. I'm going to be more willing to think about, hey, maybe we can talk about fantasies, or let's try this other thing, or let's have, let's do something different, or yeah, that's a good idea. It's this openness, number one. So again, going back to, in whatever way you can bring that into your life, or if you're feeling stuck, to figure out why and change it, because you can. It's nobody is stopping me except me.
Right.
Okay. Rarely. I know sometimes we're actually trapped and not able to leave. That's different. We're talking about emotional entrapment. Number two is they had this great degree of self-awareness. So that chapter is called Know Yourself First. Kind of sounds so simple, but going back to that, sit down with yourself. Why do I feel this way? Why am I afraid to talk? Why am I feeling trapped? What, personal development work. They were all very much on some type of journey. And then physically knowing their own body, as the last question alluded to, self-pleasure. I mean, you have to. I highly recommend. I didn't have a vibrator till I was 45. Now I've got like a whole drawer full. Spend time with yourself. If I cannot figure out what feels good for me, how can I possibly communicate that to another person? They don't know whether they're male or female, doesn't matter. How are they going to know what I like? Because what I like is different than what you like, and not all women like the same things.
Right.
So self-awareness, self-knowledge, including physically. And then number three, going back to attention and intention. And so those are linked but different. Each one of these women were not just taking their relationship for granted. They had made an intention, like, I am going to make this important. Intention. And every day, the attention piece is slightly different. I think that is where I choose to place my mind. So am I going to think about negative things or positive things? I love the idea that every moment has all the evidence to have a really shitty day or a really great day. Except pick which one we choose. So they intentionally did little things, like we talked about, saying hello and goodbye in a beautiful way, doing something together, whatever it is, cooking, tennis, yoga, go fishing, like anything, making it important and telling your person they're important. I love things like giving your person praise in front of somebody else, like bragging and like saying, oh, he's so great. And they can hear you, right? So saying lovely things, being appreciative, building them up, supporting their dreams. Is that what I want? Yes, I want that too. And so, but it doesn't happen by accident. We have to decide to do it. That's the intention part. And then pay attention to it. That's where we put our mind. 5 minutes a day. This is not a big project,
Right. I feel
turn your sex life around.
I feel like you're sort of illustrating this kind of, for lack of a better word, but this sort of beautiful tension between a freedom and a focus, like a choice to sort of lift yourself, be self-reflective, be self-aware, and also decide, right? Make that choice to do the same for another, which maybe can be pretty hard if you're unhappy in a relationship. But I think these are all goals, no matter what, whether you're in one, whether you're hoping to be in one, whether you're stepping your toe into a new one, whatever that looks like. This is all really just enormously helpful. And I think ultimately, as you said, makes for an active, vibrant, satisfying, sexually well, sexually healthy, sexually satisfied, happy you.
Yes. And so true. So sometimes there's a sex deficit for some reason that can be out of our control, like maybe we've had cancer or there's an illness or some reason why we can't have vaginal intercourse. We have to sort of move away from that being the be all end all. Relationships can survive periods of not having sex. Maybe you've had surgery, or you can think of a lot of reasons why that might not be available, but they cannot survive without intimacy. And so intimacy can be just touching, could be cooking together, a little cuddle, a nice word, a kind moment. I got you, a little wink, and hey, cutie, whatever it is that works for you. So easy, and that leads to better things in the bedroom. But sometimes that's not even on the menu.
Yeah.
But so intimacy. Just to speak to that, when I started this questionnaire, I was asking, I was very clueless. I was asking women how frequently they had sex. And after a short while, I got so many questions about, what do you mean? Like, what do you, I realized, oh, I don't know. So I was thinking about how many times a month do you have vaginal intercourse, which is such not the right question. So
Right.
instead, like, how often are you physically intimate with your partner? That's how it was rephrased, because that could look like a lot of different things at different times. We talked about cases where we change our sexual preferences, or things that are not as fun as they used to be, and something else might take its place. So yes, there's these psychological elements which are critical, and like, you have to have those first, I'll just say. And then, of course, don't forget, we need to have a healthy vagina. And so a whole nother conversations about hormone optimization, because that's also, parallel, have to do both. But you can
I
have
actually,
best hormones. If you're not connected, they're not going to do a darn thing. So
okay. So I was going to ask you if you have 5 more minutes, Susan, because that was actually my last question was
I
sort
do,
of,
yeah.
about loss of blood flow and hormones, and what can we optimize
Yes.
in that avenue on
So
that.
important. So there
Mhm.
are physical anatomic realities of aging that affect our sex life. So we can talk all day about the self-awareness project and the attention and all these things, and that's super important. But we can't ignore their physical anatomic changes when we have 3 primary ovarian hormones: estrogen, testosterone, progesterone. They all drop and then disappear. We might have a tiny bit, but for all intents and purposes, after menopause, they're gone, and it's not good, as we know.
Right.
So yeah, vaginal dryness, it causes pain. The tissue cannot tear. It's just all kinds of not good. So estrogen is critical. With very few exceptions, I recommend estrogen replacement for almost everybody. I mean, very, very few exceptions.
Okay.
Testosterone, also a really important hormone for women. A fun fact is that we make more testosterone throughout our lives than estradiol. Not as much as men, of course, 10 times less than men, but testosterone is critical for women. And so when it drops, and it can drop dramatically, mine was 0 when I was 45. I had no sex drive. Now, there were a
Wow.
lot of reasons for that, but one of them was that. So
Right.
it would be untrue and unwise for anyone to ever say, oh, testosterone will fix everything. Of course not. That would not be true. But as part of a holistic picture, it's really helpful, along with all the other things, because it helps with desire. It helps the vaginal tissue to be more healthy, helps us maintain and build muscle, helps our bone health. Progesterone, really important, not just for preventing uterine cancer, but for sleep, mood changes, all the anxiety and yuckiness that comes along with perimenopause. Progesterone fixes it. So yes, that's also really important. So if we're in this perimenopause or menopausal stage, and we're not addressing our hormones, maybe we're seeing a sex therapist, really great idea, or doing our own work in that regard, fantastic. But we have to really do both. Just like men have their anatomic issues with erectile dysfunction and other health issues that we talked about in the beginning of this conversation, we have to address our issues with hormone depletion, and completely fixable. I mean, that's such a no-brainer. Like that should not ever exist. Vaginal dryness and pain.
Yes, I heard you say that. I was
eradicate
just
from
going
the
to say that.
planet. Yeah.
Yes, I heard you say that in an interview, I guess, that like these terms you're done. You don't even want to hear them anymore. No reason that we should have
I
them.
love this question. Like, would men put up with that for 5 seconds if we told them, okay, your penis is going to hurt, it'll be dry, and then it won't work, and you would just put up with that? Of course they would.
I mean, Viagra, like overnight, it was there.
Fastest drug to ever get through the FDA. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Someone just wrote in, do you have a recommendation for types of HRT? Are estrogen and testosterone pellets safe? I hear a lot of.
Yeah, that's a huge topic. I have them in my bottom right now. So yes, they're very safe.
So yes, you are pro pellet.
That's a great way to get hormones. So any way to get bioidentical estradiol and testosterone is great. Just don't take it by mouth because it's bad for your liver. So a cream, a patch, a pellet. Great. And then progesterone, if you have a uterus, you need to take it, but I would take it anyway, even if you've had a hysterectomy, because it helps with sleep, moods, hair, skin, nails, lots of things. So pellets are one way. They're not the only way, but if anyone wants to hear more about that on my YouTube channel, I've got lots of information about pellets versus patches and what are the choices and all the things, because that's a big, big topic, but absolutely safe. I got them in my bottom right now.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Dr. Susan, what ultimately, we went over a lot, and I so appreciate your time, and you're wonderful to speak with and learn from. Is there anything I've missed that you want women to know?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my God. I know. Yeah. In 5 seconds.
I get so excited about this topic, of course, as you can tell, because it's so exciting. And I think that if I could narrow it down to like what I would want everyone to take away is it is possible. If you feel there's something wrong with you, you're alone, hopeless, there's no way out, that this is never going to get better, I promise you that is a limiting belief. That is not true, because I was there, and you're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you. This is shared with so many other women, and you can get out of this so that you can feel fantastic again and have whatever type of intimate relationship you really want, whatever that is. So that's the most important message. You're not alone. There's nothing wrong with you, and you can feel better. I promise.
Thank you so much for this time. Guys, I will link in, and we'll have all of for you all the places that you can find Dr. Hardwick Smith. I just have to say thank you for your book, your work, your research, your contribution to certainly the health and wellness of women, but specifically in this piece, which is not a little piece, it's a very big piece, the sexual health, sexual wellness, enjoyment, pleasure, so on and so forth. You know, having a voice that combines sort of the science, a holistic approach, is just enormously helpful to all of us. So thank you for the work that you've done.
It was actually my pleasure, because I helped myself first, and
yes,
pass it on to other people. So we deserve it. Life is short. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you who joined us on this call, and hope to speak to you again. I always like to ask guests, which is like sort of an obnoxious question because you're busy and you're all doing things, and you know, sometimes we speak to people who've just released a book, but is there anything that you would like to share with us that's sort of coming up next for you? No pressure if not, but if
no, lots of things. So for those who live in Texas, I'm only licensed to practice in Texas, but I do see patients in person. I have other physicians and nurse practitioners who I trained who do the same thing. And so seeing someone in person is great. We also do virtual visits, but again, only licensed in Texas. So come to Texas if you don't live here already. I have a lot of patients who come from other states to visit. We spend an hour with a patient typically for a first visit, or more, at least an hour.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, because someone did your practice is called the Complete Midlife Wellness Center in Houston, and somewhere else, or 2 spots in Houston.
2 spots in Houston
Okay.
right now, and we're continuing to grow. And then on my website, which you can link to below, we have a retreat coming up in Costa Rica, Empowering Midlife Wellness. This one's called Activating Happiness in Midlife. We did one in May. It was amazing. So just for women in the sort of 40 to 60, 65 age group, just do that. Come to Costa Rica. It's going to be sold out soon, but it's not yet. And so much fun if you want to be in a space with other women who talk like this for 3 days instead of for an hour. Amazing.
Thank you.
Fun. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Susan. Thank you, everyone. Be well. Hope to talk to you again another time. And really just welcome to the Perry community.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.